Hello there. What's going on, everybody? We're back at it. It's another episode of Double Critical Podcast. We're bringing to you episode number 2, and we're going to be talking about most wanted upgrades and upgrade pack wish lists today. With me, as always, is Prehistoric Sean, and I am Crabbok, aka Tim, and we're going to be bringing you guys a very special guest today. But before I introduce him, I've got to put out a disclaimer that there was a problem in the initial production of this video. I was contacted by our Ace technical team, and they called me up and they said, "Sir, we've got a terrible problem." And I said, "What is it, Johnson?" And he goes, Sir, it's a very, very serious problem." I'm like, "How serious is it?" He goes, "Sir, it's critical." And I'm like, "How critical is it?" And he goes, "Sir, it's double critical." And I'm like, "All right, don't toy around with me, Johnson. Give it to me straight." And he goes, "Sir, there's no audio." So that's basically what happened. So this entire podcast was actually already recorded and finalized and done, and there was no audio. It was all turned off, and it's all Johnson's fault. Now,
it's 4.5.
Yeah, this is so. In true double critical fashion, this is a double episode of Double Critical. So with the disclaimer that everything we're talking about, we're probably already talked about. So there's going to be a lot of like we already spoke about, but we're back at it again, and it's going to be double the fun, double the flavor, and double the guests. Well, no, not really double the guests. There's just instead of
in the last name, I'm like,
yes. So, but no. So joining us today is the man, the myth, the legend, War Corgi. Michael's joining us today. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. I gotta start with my own disclaimer. My ideas have not gotten any better since yesterday. So, if you were hoping for that, and if Johnson was hoping for that, you both will be sorely disappointed.
Well,
I thought it was a high bar, but
the good news is that nobody knows how good your ideas were. So
yeah, they're gonna know how bad they are shortly.
some of them were awesome, and some of them were really awesome. I think there was only like one or two that were like I get.
We talked about them.
We talked about them. Yeah. So basically, for anybody who's not familiar with War Corgi and everything that you've got going on between, he does amazing stuff, everybody listening. He's got these amazing battle reports, these fantastic effects. If you follow what he has posted in the I'm sorry, not the YouTube, but yes, they're on YouTube, but in the Facebook group too, like a lot of these thumbnails, these motion thumbnails with like lightsaber effects and force lightning and all of that fantastic stuff. And as well as just recently, you've got a new podcast, and maybe not as new as this one, but yeah. So tell us about the War Corgi brand and everything that you've got going on.
Yeah, well, thanks for all that. We like to refer to ourselves as the other Star Wars Legion YouTube channel, a distant second behind you. And, in St. Louis, we're used to being a distant second. We have 11 world championships for our St. Louis Cardinals, which is second to the New York Yankees, who have a ridiculous number of 27. That's kind of like your ridiculous number of subscribers, Tim. But, we make do here. We're proud. And besides that, we just launched our 10th episode of The Jedi Hunter with my friend Keith. He's the one that's running that, and I go on there as a guest every week. So I guess I'm a host. I think that's a technical term.
Yeah, well, you're also higher than Johnson.
Yes, well, get that man a red shirt. And the other thing I do is, of course, battle reports from my channel, but we also post battle reports on the Paint All the Mini channel. Big shout out to Dan Adam. He has his own podcast as well called Paint All the Minis, and it's all about painting your minis and celebrating what you're doing in the hobby. So it's like a real low pressure, no pressure type Facebook group and podcast where they just want to see what you're doing and show genuine interest in any progress you're making getting paint on those minis. So those are the three things that we've got going here in St. Louis, and it keeps us busy full time, which is good because the Cardinals aren't coming back for a little while.
Not much is, and this is actually a really good time to be painting the minis. I mean, get some more minis because it may be a while. It may be a while. It's a very good time to be listening to podcasts too.
Campaign. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I say I gotta give you props too for the campaign, because that's just kind of similar things we're talking about. It's very creative, adding rules to this game and making it more fun and more enjoyable. And the narratives you have on your battle reports, I personally love. Like one of the recent ones I watched is like Imperials found these clones on like deserted planet, and like this is why they fought. I was like, oh, that's so cool. So
yeah, we do our best for that. The campaign's been a blast. Crabbok, you'll be interested to know that we have fully implemented and integrated Star Wars Armada. So the Star Wars Armada scene here in St. Louis is building quickly.
You've taken your first steps into a larger world. Yes, no, I'm thrilled to see some, and I would love to see some War Corgi Armada bat reps too, because that game definitely lends itself, especially just to the thumbnails. Like you can create some great imagery of like a Star Destroyer, homing down, staring down a couple of Nebulons and CR-90s, and when the Clone Wars comes out for that too, and that it's very good. It's very good. It's a very good time to be a Star Wars fan, despite all the chaos in the world right now.
Indeed.
So, speaking of chaos, let's talk about some of our ideas. So, for anybody who is not familiar with the concept of this podcast, this podcast, Double Critical, is basically just focused on wish lists, theory craft, and speculation. Talking about the things that we, would love to see. Things that we want, our hopes, our dreams, and our
display for you.
our wildest anticipations are certainly here and kind of on display. And each week will be a theme, and this week's theme is most wanted upgrade packs. So specifically looking at, we've seen specialist packs for the Rebels and the Empire that added new personnel options that can go anywhere, which was great. And then more recently, we've seen the trooper upgrade packs for all 4 factions for the very first trooper. So in the spirit of like some kind of, if they were to do more upgrade packs, we're going to talk about things that we would like to see. And some of us have kind of already prepared a couple to talk about. We might, there may be a couple that we just kind of like, hey, what about this? And, so I would like to open everything up and talk about maybe 2 of the upgrades or 2 of the units that are most desperate need. Fleets and snows, or fleet troopers and snow troopers, opening the floor up with fleet troopers, because they, I think, are a unit that was really useful maybe when they first came out, and maybe people were building terrain a little bit differently. I know when they first came out, Sean and I were playing on a lot of my tables, and I used to use a lot of
Imperial walls that were out there.
Walls everywhere, a lot of line of sight blocking terrain. And that's one of the things that they were able to thrive on, is that they could get into a position and be able to stand by. Because that's what fleets need, right? They need to be able to stand by. But now with the proliferation of everything having range 4 options, there's just no chance. Like it was hard enough, shooting them at range 3 when you were still out of their range. But now it's near impossible. So fleets really need some love.
And the kicker was like, it's a split shot too that gets you. Like it's the DLT that, hey, I'm just gonna throw this DLT at you, shoot, and then still move forward. So you don't have to even waste that much dice on it.
Just that one. Now, Sean, you were talking about. I think you went first yesterday when we tried this. Do you want to go first this time?
Yeah. So my ideas of the fleets is one thing they work off the standby token using that. And it's such an easy thing to get rid of. One of the ideas I had was a specialist or captain or something that would allow you to, is exhaustible, but if someone shoots you, you ignore the effects of losing your standby when you gain a suppression. That way they still maintain that standby, and it forces your opponent to make some choices. Do I shoot them again to try it again? That's again, if they don't wipe them out, because they definitely need some help there a little bit on the range side. I was also thinking of making them a little unique too, or they could play a different role with a unique unique leader upgrade of Captain Antilles, where you can sacrifice him to do like a similar K2SO effect. Like maybe you can't shoot this nearby unit, or I think we talked about like distract, so that you have to focus on that unit.
Right, and distract is already in the game now with C-3PO. So it's that would be thematic, because that's certainly what happened. Vader choked out Captain Antilles, and I thought that was a little unnecessary. I didn't think Vader really needed to go that far with him, but That's certainly.
He was pissed after Rogue One. Like he was like, you saw how mad he was on like when that ship got away.
Well, that's why
Put on his face.
these guys need a little bit of medication. They just need some anger. They need some what are you, downers?
Sith Xanax.
Yeah.
You know, in the original trilogy, guys, Vader didn't have a great track record of actually killing rebels. So this was one of his opportunities to do that.
Show he can. Yeah, there we go. I like it.
I think his kill count against Imperials was actually higher than they were against rebels.
You know, have you ever seen the Robot Chicken where they all like they put on fake mustaches and stuff, and it's like anytime he holds up his hand, you just have to pretend you're being choked, otherwise he's gonna pull out that lightsaber and cut you in half. Yeah, no, that's a very good idea. So no, I like the Captain Antilles thing, but I also especially like the idea of preserving the standby, because that's a pretty cool way to allow them to still potentially work and guard that point without it being taken away so easily. Yeah. So
War Corgi had great ideas with that too.
yeah, no, you did. You had something that was kind of similar, but it approached it in a different way.
Yeah, that was my electronic warfare officer, and you can imagine this guy using some techno sorcery to make it hard for other units to shoot at him. So it would be a free action tap to use, so they can't use it every turn unless they're recovering. And that would make the target immune to trooper shooting from range 3+. And so no longer are snipers or DLT-19s able to be plinking these guys outside of their standby range. Kind of gives them a little bit of immunity and forces the opponent to come to them so they can trigger that standby.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that a lot better. Now that would be a personnel. It sounds like. Right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I like
a big old like dish on his backpack too, like all sorts of crazy stuff. The 60.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I like the idea of actually, preserving the standby by just simply not being shot, because, like if you can keep your standby even when you gain suppression, that's fine, but I can still whittle you down. So when you do, because each fleet trooper you kill, you're taking 2 dice out of the attack pool. So if you can't shoot them at all, that becomes a lot more difficult.
And that probably has a lot more simple card text than the one I came up with. But like, if this, then this. This is, hey, you're just immune. Range 1 to 2. Not like a little paragraph inside that card.
And that's how dreams are born, by collaboration and simplification. I think that's one of the strongest things that you can find in a lot of cards is the way you can get an idea across in as fewest text as possible, which I'm not doing by trying to say this, but yeah, keep it simple, stupid. Yeah.
So my theme for tonight is going to be thematic, but maybe not well balanced. But you can certainly think about the rebel naval forces having the electronic warfare specialist inherent in that organization. So I think it really works as a personnel upgrade for the fleet troopers, especially.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. So
you had a second one too that I really like because it made him a different support kind of option. It was your laser guy, right?
I had a close air support NCO.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yes. All right.
I love that idea.
This is also a personnel upgrade, and it would be an action tap to use. So this is not a free action. This is an action. It would give them range 4+, 2 times red dice, and impact 1. As you imagine these naval spotters bringing in the Y-wings onto the enemy, and what it allows them to do is then keep their distance, but still participate in the battle until enemy forces really start to close that range in towards the objectives, and they can pull out their pistols and start blasting.
That's awesome. It's very reminiscent of Battlefront too, because you can get those the electro binoculars and call down those strikes.
I really want to see when this game first launched. I should say I really wanted to see starfighters show up and actually, like, look, if you got a snow speeder in the game, why can't you do an X-wing, right? And then I come to find out, well, snow speeders are actually much smaller than X-wings, but wouldn't that be cool? And if they were only on the table for only 2 turns, like they had to make 2 compulsory moves because they're that fast, but they get to do the bombing run. That might be fun, but I think they'd be too big, and you'd end up spending $80 for this giant model that you can only use for 2 turns in the game.
FFG loves that idea. We maybe not so much.
Maybe, yeah. So my idea for the fleets was to go with something that changes their playstyle a little bit, in that they are now. I like your ideas of preserving. Oh, there you go. Oh, TIE bomber. Ooh. That's a good sized bomber too. Is that
Legion
a Rebel?
Scale inside of my head.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wicked.
But so you guys both had ideas of using, preserving this standby and kind of working that mechanic of it. And I do like that. But I was thinking a little different in that what if you had a heavy weapon option that is taking advantage of the idea that they want to get into close range. So somebody who was maybe had like 3 dice for his melee. It doesn't even have the ranged option at all because here the unit themselves already have 2 dice for ranged attacks. So he's already got a above average ranged weapon, even just using the unit's default. But what he doesn't have is they lose effectiveness once somebody actually closes into melee. So that this kind of makes up for that weakness and gives them charge or something like that, which could actually be useful because they're a speed 2 unit, and so charge wouldn't actually be that bad. I mean, now charge might be a bit much if it also came on a heavy, but I mean it would give you a whole different way to build them and a whole different strategy to run them, and I don't think any core have charge. The closest you have are the snows. For core, yeah, because the cores have steady, right. But maybe relentless would be a little too much. But
it's neat because it's both actually the close fire support and your idea is it's along the same lines of, hey, they are meant to guard the objective, and if you get too close, I'm a fire support. I'm providing support even though I'm guarding this objective. I'm using my standbys to make sure I can do stuff. Yours is, hey, you get close to me, I'm going to make sure I keep this objective safe.
Yeah,
it's similar roles, but like 2 different approaches, which variety is a spice of life.
Well, and the fleets also are more of the military branch of the rebellion. They're they're all in uniforms, and they're
Alderaanian, aren't they?
Right, they were Alderaanian Guard in the movie, so they're actually they're part of an established military. So they're not recruits. They're not local militia. So you could have some type of constable or like an MP in that case, or who's got a riot control baton or something, or a rebels version of it, an Alderaanian version of like a stun. It maybe it has a suppressive keyword on it instead of charge or something like that. But yeah, so there's a lot of different things you could do.
They are still in the Navy, so you don't want to make them too overpowered at close combat.
No, definitely not.
Keep this balance.
You give him a dolphin. a dolphin in like a little aqua suit like Finn had in The Last Jedi. Yeah, and then
I'm imagining like sand dolphin now, like that's on like the. It'd be kind of cool actually.
Mm-hmm.
I want creatures. Oh, I want creatures.
So the fleet dolphin would be his name. Yeah.
Right. I like the idea of a close combat specialist in there. Another way that you can tackle that is with a veteran sergeant, and this would be a personnel upgrade that replaces the unit leader. And you said that Relentless might be a bit too much, but I think it actually would be great for them. So as a free action tap to use, the unit gains Relentless. And what that allows them to do, if they don't have any suppression, they can jump out from behind that corner that they're using to keep themselves protected, take that shot, and then dive back into that corner. Or if they only have 1 action, which happens a lot with fleets, they can still move and shoot.
That's not bad. Now, you said this replaces the leader, but
yes,
doesn't increase the courage, right? Unlike the opposite. So that's a trade-off, right?
You got to differentiate here. So this is going to be a separate dude that will not increase their courage. But with Relentless, as long as they're getting 1 action, if they're within the range of their commander, maybe Cassian Andor or whoever, Leia, as long as they're not panicking, they can still take that 1 action and get the shot off as well.
Yeah. Yep. As long as they don't have Dauntless on top of all of that, because that keyword is baloney.
What? Compel my butt.
No,
whatever.
It's because I have to play against it all the time.
Contact a personal injury lawyer here.
Yeah, I might have to. All right, so fleets. I think we talked about a couple of really cool, interesting options for fleets. I would love to see any of those show up, just so fleets can get some loving. You got anything else?
Our idea was a weapon upgrade for them that gave them launch shot, and so that way, it applies to the whole, maybe apply to the whole group. So that way, when they move, they can spend. If they have an aim, they can spend it to increase their range by 1. So it's it doesn't add to the role. It just makes them another rebel trooper, which I don't really like so much. But it's an idea, I guess.
Well, it can work. It can work with standby. So like long shot works with them because they
don't
already
have
have.
Overwatch.
They don't have Overwatch.
Yeah.
I don't
So it
think.
doesn't really help.
No, but still, if somebody does trigger it, you can now opt to shoot even farther away.
Okay.
No,
Yeah, I mean it's something. It's
Exactly.
better to have the. It's good to have the options, and because here's the thing. Here's how. I've got it. And this wasn't in yesterday's thing, so here's some new. Since we've been able to start on these. If you give them grenades, because long shot, right? It increases the range.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah.
So now all of a sudden they're range 2. Now your grenade you can add a grenade to your range 2 standby shot. So you still have the problem of trying to get them into range 2, but if you do, the payoff can be even better.
Okay. Counterpoint. Fleets have they already have an overwhelming dice pool. That really is only more of a utilitarian thing because I could see it. Hey, maybe impact frag grenades are great. Frag grenades are good general, but like that's sometimes you almost want to take that 2 white dice option just to get that overwhelming firepower.
Well, Ion would be a good one.
Oh, I guess concussion, blast. Never mind.
Yeah,
Take place from the grenade launcher.
Yeah.
It might give you an option to use grenades that you otherwise wouldn't use. Plus, with the option of more newer grenades coming out someday, maybe we'll do a grenade episode one day. But it's an option. It doesn't have to be the primary way you would do it, but I think that's a kind of a cool thing.
I got one more to run past you guys before we move on, and that's my shield technician, as inspired by Battlefront 1. This is a personnel upgrade. Action tap to use while units remain in range 1 of this particular person. They gain 1 shield token.
Ooh. So you want to make it the person, or do you want to make it like a token you place out? Because they kind of like did like
it's a token. It's definitely the token.
Okay, okay.
Right. Absolutely right.
Because I love that idea because like whole
so it's the bubble.
And we said
create like a resin shield or whatever.
And they said it has to be the whole unit must be within range 1 of that token in order to get that shield token.
So this is the bubble shield that we saw in Star Wars Battlefront, where somebody puts down this shield, a little shield generator, and it shoots up, and you've got a whole dome, like a semicircle on the ground. Similar in ways that, and I really hope we do get our Gungans one of these days, but like the big Gungan shields. Now those are obviously much bigger, but I definitely want those too, right?
No, I love that. It's because it's just cool.
Evolution of this idea. You put the shield tokens on the token that you placed out there to represent the shield. So if they shoot at any unit that's wholly within range 1 of that, you take the tokens from that instead.
Oh yeah, because it's going through the same shield generator.
Yeah.
No, that's a great idea.
Putting a shield token on the unit, you put it on on the table, and then you got to run through maybe 2 shields, and then that shield will go down.
Actually. So we talked about this one yesterday, but I want to just talk about how I think this may be one of the best ideas for fleets, because like they do have that problem of running in. They do have that problem of trying to get close enough to standby. And so if they can go on standby behind a shield, that's awesome. That's really awesome, because now they've got that extra protection. Now they've already got Search the Defense, which is something, but most rebels have that. It's not that great. So they need all the help they can get defensively if they're going to make the charge.
And it plays into the Navy specialist in the electronic warfare, shield warfare with the capital ships. They can minimize that on the battle.
Like if you're on like a Navy ship, like having a shield there, like that stops any incoming fire. That makes sense. Or like you're in a hangar bay where you don't worry about starship weapons. That makes perfect sense.
All right, so snowtroopers are the other unit that really need the love.
Mainly you guys.
Snowtroopers are probably my favorite unit in the game. I bought 5 of these. I've tried to run 5 at a time. I don't always go quite that many, but like my go-to snowtrooper build is frag grenades and flame trooper, and an extra snowtrooper dude. But yeah, like a full unit with the flamethrower, because even down to only having 2 people left, they're still so strong. So I absolutely love the snowtroopers, but they're just not really able to. They kind of suffer from some of the same things that make fleets difficult to play. I wouldn't say unplayable, but difficult to play. And that's that when they have line of sight blocking stuff and full protection to advance, then they can do very, very well. But since most tournament battlefields are very different than the way I tend to like build mine on my tabletop. There's a lot more open areas. There's a lot less full line of sight blocking terrain. They're just not doing that well, especially with the proliferation of range 4 Imperial gun lines. They're usually dead before they can get close enough to shoot. And so snowtroopers definitely need some love and could use an upgrade pack for them as well. I think, I'll start this one off if you guys don't mind. I would really like to kind of expand on their steady ability. And that is with, basically they have a range 3 shot. That's, for one of their heavy weapons, not the flamer. Right, their ion guy's range 3, but he's inexhaustible. So one alternative way that I've tried to run snowtroopers instead of just being, flame troopers is they're the only core unit in the game right now that can move out, take a shot, and then move back. So they can be totally protected, jump out, take a free shot, and then move back because of steady. But to do that, you either have to do their basic gun, which means you don't have an aim token and you're only rolling white dice, so it's really, really, really weak. Or, you use the ion guy, and you've got an exhaustible. You got 3 extra dice, or I guess technically 2 extra dice because you're the one guy. But it's not a very strong weapon, and it forces you to have to recover, so it's just not very good. So I'd like an option for that whole stick and move, jump out from behind line of sight blocking terrain, take a shot, and then jump back in. The thing is, I want to extend the range a little bit, so I thought of a range 4 guy, but not too strong of a dice pool, because I don't want them to be better than snipers, but I want them to, at least to be able to play that game a little bit shorter range, not as good dice, no pierce. I've thought about maybe giving them 2 black, or maybe a black and a red. So it's only 2 dice, maybe a range 4 attack. They can move out, take this shot, and then move back in. And the reason that could be broken, because I'm like, well, now you got a range 4 attack where I can't even attack you back. And I get that, but my thought to balance that is since you're only rolling 2 dice and you don't have blast or anything like that, you do have surge to hit, but you're not ever going to get through heavy cover. So that's my thought. It gives you a different play style with them. You can take the whole, I'm going to take pot shots against anybody who's in the open, but you're usually never going to have an aim if you want to do that, at least not natively. It's only 2 dice. So, that'd be one option. Maybe not the best option, but it'd be one option.
I do like that option, the ability to start, plugging people at range 3, then scampering behind cover. It is one of the things that they do, and only they do well. Yeah. And they don't do it very well. This would at least help them out a little bit there. I love it.
Yeah, and that's the same weapon that I'm talking about. That it might not have to be range 4, even if it's just a range 3 shot that doesn't exhaust to shoot. Might be fine. Yeah, range 3 is probably more fair, but I wanted to just spice it up a little bit by saying let's make Snows get a range 4 guy. Yeah. I know somebody had an idea of giving them spur.
Yeah, the leader was encouraged to spur, but the spur is tappable, so it's not something you can do every time. It's a double timing towards the objective, because I think War Corgi Michael mentioned, hey, they're assault force. That's what they're designed for. So that's kind of idea, running towards everybody.
Okay, and you also say, so if they're gonna have spur, you give it to the leader, who also increases their courage, similar to the other leader, but this one doesn't have inspire, so you kind of lose inspire. You gain spur, which would be really strong on them. It might end up being expensive as well, which, rightfully so. A leader mini is usually kind of expensive anyway. But
yeah, and I think that's a fairly good and balanced trade. You can have the snow trooper with the little 2 Imperial bars to make him a lieutenant, and paint those up blue, and then taking spur, which only helps you, as opposed to inspire for a regular Imperial officer who inspires the whole force. So I really like that trade-off, and I think that's a fair one.
It does add that they're charging into the Hangar Bay. They need some shotguns, man. I think that's kind of how I see them too, barging through the door, kick it in, down the rebels.
That's
so related to that.
Yeah.
If I can. I came up with a fire support officer This is one of the few that's not an NCO. You want officers controlling your fires whenever possible. Personnel upgrade. This is an ability, and it says mortars do not need line of sight while performing fire support to this unit's target. So it allows those mortars to be shooting from maybe cover or maybe someplace else where they can't see the target, and that fire support officer is calling them in.
Now, we didn't talk about it last night. Would that also say, hey, maybe the arc? Would that like say they can fire out of arc maybe as well, or does it still have to be fixed front arc?
Well, that's a good question. Probably still a fixed front arc. I thought maybe about increasing the range, but I thought that might be a little bit much. This is really a niche case, I'm afraid, because when you're running snow troopers, you're not likely to have a whole bunch of shore troopers, which allow you to get the mortars. So it's probably not the most useful upgrade, but thematically, I just imagine those snow troopers, storming across the objective with one guy in there calling fire support down on the rebels as they're doing it.
I mean, you could run 2 of them because if you're running 2 shores, 2 mortars, and 2 snows, I mean, you could definitely do that, and you get 2 fire supports that with steady, you can be safe, and all of a sudden nobody was in your arc, and all of a sudden, boom, you're getting shot by 2 units.
Yeah.
Here's another thing. So we're talking like these are upgrade packs. In that upgrade pack, maybe comes with an E-Web upgrade for a generator that gives them fire support. So now your E-Web have some utility.
I either like that or the ATST, because I could see an ATST being called in as those snows are crossing that objective.
Just for the mortar, though, right?
Well, it should be the mortar for the ATS, or maybe a whole different, maybe an optional, maybe just a totally different mortar. But hold that thought to a little bit, because we're going to talk about vehicle upgrades and other types of upgrades beyond troopers a little bit later in the show. So no, I like that idea. I would also, similar to how you guys are tacking on extra things, I wonder if there's a way to make it work with Veers's 1 pip as well. Like I can't think of a really clean way to do it right now. And you don't want to have too many individual use cases. So maybe you just errata certain cards to call them like high arc shots, and you give in anybody who's yeah.
Didn't they just I don't know, didn't they errata where fire support cannot be used on command card abilities, or am I wrong on that?
I don't recall that.
Oh, I hope they did.
Because like I've been on the end.
Either.
I've been on the end of the layout with the Mark II's thing too, so it's.
Yeah.
Oh my!
I think they did, but I don't remember for sure. Like, it's in my brain, but it might just be rattling around. So I
think there was some discussion because it says using only this weapon. I think that was in the FAQ, but I think it was saying only this weapon for purposes of arsenal. So you couldn't you couldn't double up the attack or something like that if it was for. Oh, it was for Rex. It was specifically, I believe, for Rex. So when he does
Grievous,
is it Grievous?
Oh, no, Grievous.
It was Grievous. You're right. Right.
When he trained in your Jedi arts.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think there was. I'm probably getting confused because I think there was a clarification for when Rex uses fire support, he doesn't also get to gunslinger and shoot somebody else out, because that seems clear because it's an attack action to triggers gunslinger, not a fire support. But sometimes, a lot of people have those questions about stuff because when you're newer to a game, or just don't dig as deep into the rules, then some things might not seem as clear.
I think we're in agreement, though. We need fire support officers calling in artillery somewhere in this game.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people that's how they envision the mortars as. So this gives them you get that feel of like, hey, they're calling in that fire support. That's because that's how I thought they were going to be, and they didn't end up. This isn't bad. I understand sometimes the game mechanics trump the reality of it, but now this that gives the idea of it. So I like it. I like it a lot.
It makes me also want to support at some point. That's actually like
spotter
dudes. Yeah, that's just a spotter. They're your forward observers. They're calling in stuff, and and while they probably have virtually no attack on their own, they let other people attack without line of sight. Or maybe within a certain range, like you let somebody ignore terrain height 1 or lower if it's in between, if it would be blocking, or I don't know.
So the idea you're thinking of, it's something done in Warhammer. That I play the Town Warhammer, full disclosure, and they have a thing called Oh crap!
Yeah, I know what you're talking about because I have that kill team. It's that little droid, right?
The little laser beams that they do, it's like it buffs up other units around them, but they don't really have an attack themselves if they do that. It's a neat idea because then you have a true full support unit. And do we have that in Legion right now? A unit that does not attack.
I mean, your non-combatant's your medic, but that's not a unit.
Attached to a unit. Yeah.
Might also be Krennic.
You don't really attack with Veers as much either. You know, like it's funny because I feel like the commanders are more support than the supports are. You know,
your commanders, Jin's amazing.
Yeah, but no Jin. But you attack with Jin. How many times has your Jin killed my Vader because she interrupted him with that freaking one pip? Oh, I'm so bitter about that. So many times.
Support's only half the title. What it should be is fire support because that's what all those units do.
I agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, but
I got another one for you, and I know Sean's gonna love it. My combat engineer, remember?
I remember something.
Sean's gonna be very happy because we're gonna talk about combat engineers now.
Yeah, personnel upgrade, free action, tap to use. Allows you to improve cover of one piece of terrain within range 1 by 1. So if you have light cover, it's going to allow you to make it heavy cover. And that's because they're moving up. They're finding every little piece of cover that they can get. And you got a guy out there with some steel and some welding material just going to work like a beaver, improving their chances to survive.
Sir, the trees are made of metal. How did they get this way?
Well, yes, like I wasn't happening. Put sandbags and plywoods on Humvees. It helps.
Yeah.
Now I know, Sean, you and I have talked a lot about the idea of a guy doing like a battlefield engineer that could drop barricades. That would let you place barricades. Now the thing is
more balance.
Well, I think there's the future in that because from the skirmish, there's a skirmish one that lets you place barricades.
Yeah, that's true. We did that.
And
didn't do that one.
And since barricades come in the core set, it's not a far cry to give players the option to place barricades. Since you get so many, and a lot of people buy multiple core sets. Usually, if you're playing somebody else, you have 2 core sets worth of barricades between you. So you're not asking much.
And then also we talked about how like. It wasn't just increase; it said decrease as well. So they kind of like play the sapper role as well. It's like, hey, you're in range, I'm going to decrease as well. So maybe you don't have to have the flamethrower to get blast because now I'm going to blow through your cover because I popped a few grenades, I popped a few like little charges in there. I love it. I absolutely love the it's something I've had bounce in my head for a while and pushed every chance I could get.
Yeah, I really like the sapper idea. They're the assault force and they're making it easy for everyone who's coming in behind them. To really gun down those rebels or those droids or whatever they're going up against. So get them up there close and destroy those defenses.
I love it. It's just, like I said, they're an assault force, so it's thematic. It's not like, they're meant for that adverse environments where they're dealing with that kind of stuff. So it's thematic and it's cool.
Yeah, no, I like that. I'm going to give you my last snowtrooper idea right now, and that is for a heavy weapon that doesn't have the long range like the last one. I'm thinking more of a close range option as an alternative to the flamethrower. Somebody who can give you more dice at close range, basically a higher floor but a lower ceiling, kind of hedging your bets here. Because one of the problems that you'll have with a flamethrower snowtrooper at some point is that if you are getting in playing the close game and you go up against a unit that has very few minis left, or a commander or an operative. And now with all we're seeing a lot of new commanders and operatives come out. Your flamethrower might be not as effective in all situations. So maybe you go for a shotgun option. My idea right now is 1 red, 1 black, 1 white. You get like single rainbow. 3 dice. You still have surge to hit. So it's a much better option against a Luke Skywalker. It's a much better option against an R2-D2 or something like that.
Any keywords?
It might be impact because it also is a much better option against a vehicle.
Oh, that's what we talked about, kind of like the SX thing for the core troopers. We talked about it a little bit.
Thorian, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It could be a versatile thing, or you could give. I mean, I don't think you give it blast because I think that's the advantage that the flamethrower has. But there's a lot of different things you could get. I'm generally trying to lean away from critical Go ahead, Sean. You got something?
I would say it's a shotgun, and we could go with the easy it's Pierce route. What about scatter? You're doing the giant shot. Everyone tries to duck and cover the Fletcher rounds. You give it scatter.
Scatter is a great idea for a weapon like that, although I will say it, and it's also not very common. It doesn't fit my idea of going after a single miniature unit, but that doesn't make it bad. That makes it more versatile, if anything. I was thinking of a single purpose, and if you are going single purpose, Pierce is not a bad one to put on there, especially since it'll only be partially effective, because obviously you're not going to be able to use it against Palpatine or Vader or anybody immune to Pierce, and so many of them are. But it will be really good against like at least half of the heroes in the game. So, I think Pierce might not be too overpowered on it.
How about immune deflect as you're shooting the shotgun blast at these lightsaber wielders? It's too much from the deflect back at you. It might save you some snowtroopers.
I love that idea. I think that's going into print. Johnson, print that card immediately, Johnson. Well, Johnson.
That's cool, yeah, because you can't deflect all the shotgun blast back.
Yeah.
Johnson, where the hell is Johnson? All right. So
still trying to find the audio from the last episode.
Yeah. Johnson's looking for it. He's like, "Sir, it's I don't know where it is, sir." Johnson's voice just changed too. Now he's quiet. All right. So I have another question. Before we move on from Snows, does anybody have anything else they would like to add to Snows before we move on?
Well, I just want to point out that last time we did this, this is where I blew your mind when you asked me about.
This is PG-13, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, blew your mind.
Okay, no, what? No,
you asked about getting things up to cover 3.
Oh yes,
said, that's right. That's right. You did ask that.
We were talking about because we sidestepped a little bit. Now, just for context, we're talking about that engineer that could improve cover. I had asked you what if what would you allow a cover 2 to go up to cover 3? You said no, and so I came in with this sidebar. So, would you ever consider cover 3? Is that, and this is also a question for the audience too. You can let us know in the comments or whatever. But I think it's worthy of some discussion, even though it's not exactly on topic. I don't mind having a little sidebar. This is the double crit. We're talking about troops, but now we're talking about cover 3, right? So, is cover 3 something that should never ever happen, or should it be possible? And if possible, how would you implement it?
After some thought, my response was battlefield condition card. I like it, but you have a battlefield condition card where no cover becomes cover 1 becomes cover 2, and cover 2 becomes cover 3. Would add an interesting element of spice to the game.
Oh yes, it makes all the units that generally like Wookiees, now they're gonna get into melee. It's you're right. It did blow our minds because this is so much. It's entirely different element now. Like the units you were like, yeah, I can just blow that off the field. Yep. Maybe I can't now. Low profile, man. Like it's buffs. I just walk in the middle of the field. You can't, or you can touch me, but it's gonna be harder.
It's absolutely. It's and it's gonna change that something like that could really change a lot of lists. If you've got a lot of blast in your list, maybe that's something you take, because that's going to give you an advantage at your opponent, because not everybody's running stuff with blast. If your opponent has a bunch of units with sharpshooter 1, well, that's gonna, it'll be okay for somebody out in the open, but it's not going to be as big of a deal as it was. So maybe that's something you kind of want to shy away from. Maybe you got somebody sharpshooter 2 and you're like, yeah, sharpshooter 2, nobody's yeah. Oh, wait a second.
That definitely, that's a card that's not going. It doesn't eliminate like a sniper meta, but it makes it like it's a risk. Like hey, if that comes on the field, they have to delete it, or you're like, okay, yeah, everyone's got light cover, heavy cover.
Exactly.
This game gets bigger and bigger in its dice pools with Iden Versio having a pocket tank now.
Oh Jesus!
It does bring down the lethality a little bit, at least with one battlefield condition.
Yeah, no, I like that. I was thinking maybe a command card to increase one piece of cover. To you mark it with a token, and this barricade now is reinforced with mithril or something, or adamantium, or I'm mixing universes right now.
Cortosis, we're going with Star Wars.
Cortosis, yeah, and so it's cover 3. Of course,
Dwarf runs out.
Right. What you don't want though is you don't want a proliferation of cover 3 to be all over the place, and then but I do like, because we were talking about this a little bit yesterday. But I think you're absolutely right. A command card is the cleanest way to do it because
Battlefield condition.
it raises. I'm sorry, a battlefield condition card. It raises everything up across the board. You don't have to change any rules other than just add a rules reference for cover 3, and it's pretty simple. It would be only used, in if it's specifically allowed, and it would cancel 3 hits.
Now, would that give cover 1 to vehicles? I didn't think about that last time.
Yeah, I think it would.
I don't see why not.
Okay, cool. Oh man, everything that's great for vehicles then too.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. That's something like it's something that's I know Tim talked about because he loves vehicles, making vehicles more prevalent. Yeah, I said the word.
Prevalent.
Right.
No, it's not prevalent either. How do you say
prevalent?
You said prevalent, and it's
right?
I think the word is prevalent, but I said prevalent, and you said prevalent, so we were all wrong. Next episode on the Grammar Nazi podcast. No. All right.
Those are my favorite YouTube comments when I pronounce something like Lehman Roos, and they're like, "That's not how you say it." I just said I got a St. Louis accent, and everything's fine.
I watched the campaign episodes, and that you guys are going through the planets. I'm like, what would you? It was like it's Bathway. Like I thought I remember you called it. And like Ilum is like, or you like Ilum is like. Wait a minute, which planet?
Silicami. You talking about Silicami?
Oh, Silicami, yeah. Oh,
well,
no,
that's how I used to say it too, and it's Seleucami, isn't it?
No
I've
way.
been told.
Well,
Silicami?
It's Seleucami because in the Clone Wars, I think it's season 1 where they go to Seleucami and they're Seleucami. No, Seleucami.
Seleucami sounds so much cooler.
Oh, well, I agree. Because when we play Rebellion, that's one of the planets, right? And we're always saying Seleucami. And
yeah, no, he uses the Rebellion thing for his campaign. It's amazing.
Yeah, and by the way, Rebellion is a fantastic game.
On point, yeah.
Okay, so before we move on to random other types of upgrades, I want to mention the other 2 second core units, B2s and Phase 2 clone troopers. Do you guys think that they should also get an upgrade pack? And if so, should it come out at the same time as fleets? What are your thoughts on those? Are they too new? What do you guys think? Are they fair game?
I want the clones to have one because as the variety isn't really there because there's a Z6 in the Phase 1s, a Z6 in the Phase 2s. I want more. I get it's a great weapon. I'm not the biggest fan because my white dice aren't always the best. It doesn't have to be right now, but then the variety I think would be nice for them.
Okay.
So I agree. It's an individual thing. I think we got to get out of the mindset that everybody has to have everything equal at the same time. There's this fairness doctrine at FFG. Let people get their things earlier than others, and you'll have fun playing against them. So I think the clones and the droids are in a pretty good spot right now. I think they're going to be in a great spot when they get their new units, and there's no hurry to develop anything for the Phase 2s or the B2s at this point.
I have one for you. I've got one. Something I wouldn't mind seeing the B2s get. Granted, it doesn't have to be right now, but this one's going to be more. If you're listening to this one, like if you're listening to this years from now, you're going to be like, "What in the heck was he talking about?" But you know how the B1s have the radiation trooper, the radiation cannon. Mm-hmm. Well, what if the B2s got something like that, but instead of just radiation, they had a coronavirus cannon?
Jesus.
and it had an effect called social distancing, and so the enemy unit has to be within cohesion of range, distance 2, a speed 2 move instead of a speed 1 move. So basically, whoever you shoot has to assemble at maximum cohesion. So now it's kind of like scatter, but they have to be as far apart from each other as possible.
It actually made me think, like, what didn't the droid tank commander, whatever his name is, that was the guy from Star Trek. He was developing like radiation / biological weapons.
Yeah, that would actually be a cool artillery piece to show up in the game at some point. But like the serious, like that's like a partial joke making fun of like social issues and current events, right? But the idea of maybe manipulating your your cohesion range, could actually be a pretty cool thing for a unit to have. I think assigning it to an enemy unit might give them an advantage because now they have a lot more flexibility. But it would be kind of a cool a cool special forces option or something like that.
People in the dystopian future, just make note, I stayed silent during this poll.
All right, so let's move on a little bit. I do think we're done talking about the basic the second wave core units right now. But one thing I do think, if they do come out with Fleets and Snows as an upgrade pack, as a trooper upgrade pack, I think if they want some parity while not necessarily being a perfect match, I think we are overdue for the Clone Wars to get the regular specialists pack.
Oh yeah, and actually we didn't add this last time, but something I want to add, like that way, like I said, ignore fairness. I think this should be different. Like I want the clone command, like the CC trooper, like 5553 or whatever. You should have make him range 1 to 3, so it's not like a normal like Rebel Imperial officer range 1 to 2, inspired 1, blah blah blah. Make him more combat oriented, range 1 to 3, and like has tactical stuff like that. So like there's the what's it called, the tactical droid has calculate odds or something like that.
Yeah, so that's one thing I think we didn't really talk about, but I think these factions do really need generic commanders. I know Separatist players would kill for a 50-point commander right now. I gotta say though, I don't know if that's in the cards for them. Not to say that they won't get a generic commander, but it could very well be a 110-point generic commander.
I see Trench, the General Trench, the spider guy.
Yeah.
I see him being relatively cheap.
Maybe. I don't know. He was he was almost like a Thrawn, though. He was a tactical mastermind, even though he lost all of the episodes that he was in. But
he was so cool, though.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a cheap one. I think it's going to be the tactical droid. I think it's going to be a clone officer. And I think it's going to closely mirror the original ones for the two factions that came out first. What I think it gives them an opportunity to do then is give all 4 factions a new personnel upgrade expansion that introduces some new units and new ways to play them. Because I thought that those 4 were a boon. And that really got me excited about Legion, as back then we really just had stormtroopers and snowtroopers, and everyone played in the same way. And suddenly you had these other things that you can add into them, and you saw a proliferation on how they were being played. So I think we're due for another one of those.
I absolutely agree.
That's a good idea. I definitely want to see more of that, and I think second round, if they do like specialists wave 2, like they call it, extra specialists, I wouldn't mind seeing some unique personnel, like Crabbok with nunchucks, a personnel upgrade, grants surge to double crit, and you can put it in any unit you want, but single dot unique upgrades, like Fives and Echo.
Tarkin was in an episode of Clone Wars. You could do like Officer Tarkin, or like
you can do characters that are already in the game. You can do Leia as a personnel. She can join any unit and lead them directly. It's a way for you to get more heroes on the battlefield also. I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Yeah, that I hadn't thought about that before, but a personnel upgrade pack with just 4 personnel that were uniques for each faction would be very interesting. I agree with you there, Tim.
Or heroic. You call it the heroic personnel upgrade pack, and for every faction, it's heroes that are commanders, but in this case, they're fighting in the trenches with the unit embedded in the unit. I like this. It also gives you an excuse to come up with alternate sculpts for people like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Rex.
Oh yeah, get Leia her Endor armor. I'm sorry, Hoth armor.
All right, Endor.
She's Endor.
She's in Endor, right? Yeah. If you were saying
Imperial Assault.
She's Hoth in Imperial Assault. I painted mine. You see mine a lot, and I painted mine white. So while she is got that Commando Endor armor, she's for me she's white. Or I made her look kind of like Hoth. But yeah.
And since we're talking about second tier characters here, I think there's nothing wrong with having that unit upgrade card, and much like you have with the Imperial or Rebel officer, maybe you give them another full unit card in there to run as a specialist or run as a cheap commander.
Yeah, I think they're going to give you some kind of unit card, and I don't know if it's a legal thing or some kind of agreement, like every product has to have cards or something like that, or like full-size cards. But the fact that the fact that we got the droid unit card that only had 4 minis but came with a full droid thing, I was like, I just have that feeling that somehow there was a technicality that said they had to put at least 1 unit card in every box to actually be able to classify it as a game expansion, or something for Legion. So I'm sure there's some legalese in there that said they had to. So I think if they do that in the future, they'll come up with some way to do it.
All the terrain expansions, they're technically like command expand. They all have the cards with them, like for objectives and all that. Because they haven't done a straight terrain pack because I don't think they can. Probably.
Yeah, I think it's classified as something else as far as patents or whatever. And so, yeah, like if we put this card in there, we can justify selling. And same thing with like an AT-AT. If they were to make that as just terrain, there would also be a scenario, capture the abandoned AT-AT, right? Or something like that. Which I totally want to do an episode on an AT-AT. I could just do a whole episode talking about giant vehicles, which would be really fun. But all right.
Well, I did come up with some generics that would apply to all 4 factions.
Let's talk about generics then. That sounds like a great idea.
Can I kick off? Because this one is my favorite.
Go for it.
And it's an adjutant, so it would take the place of a unit leader. It's an ability on this card, and it increases unit leadership by 1. Units at range 1 can use this unit's leadership for panic checks. One of the things that frustrates me a little bit about Legion is we tend to clump up our armies a lot because you don't have enough command radius to do flanking maneuvers with anything other than vehicles. You have this guy out there, can't give orders, but he'll be leadership 2 for most units, and he is able to lead a small strike force around that left or right flank.
I think before I mentioned, I love it because like it's one thing I noticed that I want Jin to do her thing, like where she's infiltrating the other side of the field with their Pathfinders, but then like, no, I need to support the rest of my army in the back. So I end up having to restrict her. And that, to me, that'd be awesome because now I have so many Battlefield rules that you can work with. It makes the terrain the whole battlefield much more interesting and usable.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. You guys have better ideas on this than I do, though. I don't have too many. Most of mine are specific. I don't have too many generics that I'd like to see for everything. Most of mine fall into the weapons category. I'd like more hard points for.
Cool. I have one that's like the mixture. Like I talked with you, Tim. It fills the weapon slot, but what it does, it adds 2 more personnel to that unit. So you're just getting double of the same thing. I call it the reinforcement card. So you're adding 2 more to that unit, and like it's just doubling up on the same unit. So you get extra health. Now we also talk about like maybe you can make it where it's new recruits. So like, hey, it's like fresh Stormies that shinies out of Clone Wars or fresh Stormtroopers or
heavy weapon option that is just 2 extra two minis that don't add a gun.
Yeah,
and they basically have no keywords.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I like that option. But that one. So here's the question. So if there was a heavy weapon option and added 2 minis to the unit, no keywords, where would that be most broken? I feel like B2s.
I say Pathfinders is what I wanted for.
Oh, Pathfinders is good. B2s.
4 white dice.
Well, it really. And what would the cost be for something like that? Because I feel like you have to figure out where they're most effective and cost them at that unit's price. So this way you probably like, I don't want them to be in my Rebel Troopers. I don't want them to be in Stormtroopers. I want them to be in Pathfinders or Death Troopers or And I don't know if they'd be that broken with Death Troopers because the Death Troopers, their heavy weapons are really, really good.
Yeah.
But for Pathfinders, you do need you need another Pathfinder because you can't run 3 Pathfinders, or at least you can't run 3 full Pathfinder units.
And then I want to have more.
Yeah.
I want them to have more.
No, that's a cool idea. I think there's a lot of potential for that. It's giving you extra hit points. So Pathfinders would be good. B2s, since each mini has 2 hit points, you're effectively adding 4 hit points to a B2 super battle droid. So those are things I think. I always look at something. I'm like, how can this be most broken? And so those are the first 2 things that come to mind for me if they're a heavy weapons option. What else are we? So
Royal Guard come to mind for me by the way.
Oh,
you put a 5-man unit of Royal Guard out there, you lose your immune pierce, but that's a pretty beat stick unit as well at 2 wounds. It's also able to spread out in Guardian quite a bit.
Oh, that's the thing that got me in my first prime was that tar pit of Guardian.
So Royal Guard is a great option to mess up because I think we touched on these briefly last night, but I think Royal Guard and Wookiees also need some type of upgrade.
Yeah, a little bit of love.
They need love. I don't know if so. I don't know if what you do is I don't know if you come up with a Imperial Royal Guard expansion pack, like or I'm sorry, or Imperial Royal Guard upgrade pack, because they don't have a personnel slot. So only thing they can take is heavy weapons. So do you come up with like 4 different heavy weapon option guys in a single pack? Maybe, or maybe you go lean a little bit more towards generic heavy weapons that can go into those units. Something like what you're talking about would be great for that. It would also pull double duty for Wookiees.
Yeah.
You know,
we talked a little bit like the negative point modifier, where like it's some of it like you're venturing in the like built-in errata stage, but like having the Wookiees have like a training card that gives them negative points and gives them like surge for defense and things like that. I also think with Wookiees heavy weapon options, they could really use a pierce weapon, like giant vibro sword or vibro axe Wookiee or whatever that help them out. Or Royal Guard could have like I don't know, Royal Guard captain and he's purple or something. I don't know why I want purple, but it works.
Michael, you had an idea for a Grenadier, and I don't remember what unit you were talking about that should go in.
I did. So this would go into all the trooper units like the original Specialist pack did.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be an ability, and it would say, this model only gains range 2 for grenade attacks.
Oh, that's
so
yeah. You're just adding the one.
Arm, St. Louis Cardinal jersey on, and he's just chucking grenades from right field into home plate.
I just don't think you can do that. I think you have to go with the New York Mets. I'm sorry.
Oh, sports.
Yeah, sports go team.
Sports ball.
Go sports ball, right?
Well, like we're here in Florida, so like, who is our winning team?
Well, it's getting ready to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because we just got Tom Brady. But but that's football. But no, the Marlins won the World Series in like what 98, I think.
They bought one.
Yeah, they bought that one. And then they sold everybody the very next year. So yeah.
Wait, what? Yeah. I don't know. That's not a sports podcast.
yeah, exactly. So before we get too off,
it was the Legion equivalent of borrowing somebody else's army to play at your local store tournament and winning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hey man, can I borrow 6 shore troopers, please? Yeah.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I understood that.
Yeah. There we go. Now we're making headway. Double critical.
Yeah, but
bridging the gap.
Specialist, tossing grenades at range 2 allows you to add certain keywords into your dice pool,
like ion,
and also gets more grenades onto the game.
Yeah, that's something
ion, impact, blast.
Oh, blast!
That's surge the crit.
That blast seems like that'd be really good in certain units. It'd be awesome.
Well, keep in mind you're only able to extend it to range 2.
Blast everyone out.
Yeah, exactly.
So. I've got 2 things. I remember making this point last night, thinking about how broken would it be, because I would then, if this guy's truly universal, I would quickly give him to the clones and use Rex's 2-pip, extend that to range 3, which I don't know if that's that broken, because Rex's 2-pip can already extend grenades to range 2, so you're just bumping it up 1 more, which is fine. But I have a logistics question for you. And this is something we didn't talk about yesterday. If we're going to do these type of universal packs, let's say we're designing it right now. We're sitting around the board table and we're like, all right, so we want some some things that aren't faction prohibited, and something that can go in any unit, kind of like the original Specialists pack. Do you make one pack and just call it the generic Troopers pack, or do you make one per faction? And this way, for one, you can make the sculpts more thematically appropriate, because you can't just have like a human in civilian clothes in the Imperial Army, right? It might work for rebels, but won't work but you can't have a stormtrooper so that it looks right for the Imperials, but then you can't have them fit with the droids, right? So I think you need to basically almost duplicate the pack, but make it unique per faction.
I would say yes, go with that, because again, making those models unique is kind of what makes Legion very cool. Is you have these models that all kind of synergize together looks wise. Also, thinking on the business side of it, you can sell multiple packs now, and that's making more money for the company. That's
suckers like me are buying 4.
Sure.
I bought 3 upgrade packs. I just paint them all. So yeah, I'm one of those as well.
Well, also you have some people that buy these and don't even play the game, right?
Sure.
Yep.
I'm going to bring up my hero, Sam Witwer, right? He was just talking about how he's been painting stuff, hasn't even played the game yet. But I know a lot of other people who buy gaming, and not just Legion, but how many people have bought the Super Star Destroyer for Armada and have it on their shelves, or even the Imperial Star Destroyer and just like have them on display. These are great models. These are great kits. They're fun to paint. Sometimes people just buy a mini just to paint it, or for role-playing game purposes too, for the RPG. So,
and Legion is very cost. I mean, in terms of model wise, I mean, because I play Warhammer, like an ATSD is what $49.99. It's bigger than some of the biggest GW model, Games Workshop models. Like so, like you're getting a great value for a very good looking piece. So yeah, I could collectors wise, it's great stuff.
Sure. And if you're going to go with individual faction facts, I'm sorry, individual faction packs. I had to rewind there. Did you hear that special effect?
Yeah,
Johnson put that one in there for me. So, if we're going to make individual faction packs, I think that opens up a door to have, say, I'll throw this out there, 3 generics and 1 unique that's actually truly unique to that faction. So, like, what I might say is maybe you've got a Grenadier, maybe you've got some type of officer, maybe you've got some type of medic or something. Unless, maybe not a normal medic or whatever. But then you've got for the Imperial one, it comes with the Royal Guard Champion, right? He's a heavy weapon that can also go into your Royal Guard. And he'd be unique, so you wouldn't have him in everything. And that means that the Rebel version could have Tarful the Wookiee, right? Or something like that. It gives you an extra heavy for anything that's needed that you can just put into that one, making each of the 4 faction packs unique, but still having them have, like, partial. What do you guys think?
No, that works for me. So with that, again, I think FFG wise, that limits how many. Like we decided, I bought 3 upgrade packs. You bought a bunch as well. Like the limits how many you buy, because if it's 1 unique guy, I only need to buy 1. Oh, I guess what?
No, you still need to buy 3.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, good point. Never mind, you're good.
Yeah, because you still want the uniques or the generics.
Yeah, I don't love it for that reason. I think there's enough design space that you can come up with 4 uniques for each faction in addition to the 4 generals.
Okay.
General support type folks for each faction. And then you only buy 1. So you have your Wookiee guy, you have your Pathfinder guy or gal, and, pick 2 more units here to upgrade with unique characters. And I think you sell that alone. And then people won't have a feels bad experience when they have to buy 3 of these packs and they're ending up with 3 Tarfals and they can only use 1.
Okay.
So I
think that's a good balance there. So we take the Tarful, we put him over to the Rebel Heroes pack, and that's going to have Tarful, something else to go in Pathfinders, maybe something else that can go in any heavy unit, and then maybe something else to go in. How about the Rebel, the original Special Forces, the Rebel Commandos?
So the Rebel Heroes pack, I love the name of that. So we're going to put that to print right now. And
Johnson, send that to print.
Brody as your next upgrade to your Pathfinders.
So, your Pathfinders. Actually, I don't know if I thought about today or the other day, but a unique character for Pathfinders would be Bodhi the pilot.
Bodhi Rook.
Maybe he does maybe he does like comm stuff, like works with comms in some way. Excellent. So that's I didn't want to be like, hey, this is like your comms upgrade, but he does other things, but like does something to be kind of really unique.
Excellent.
I'm getting him inconspicuous right now.
Yeah. Oh.
Hey, don't mind this unit of rebels right behind me. I'm wearing an Imperial uniform.
But
I like that. Oh, okay. So mean.
But if we do Bodhi Rook, we've got to do a creature pack for the Borgullet.
Borgullet.
Borgullet will find the truth.
Deception.
I got 1 more general for you guys, and this is an homage to what I used to do, and that's a PSYOP specialist.
Ooh. Oh, yeah, we tell you.
This is a personnel upgrade for all 4 factions. Free action tap to use. Choose a unit within range 2. They gain 1 suppression token as you taunt them.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah, no, I loved it too. It's It's not like overpowered. It's thematic. It's just it synergizes. I think you brought up like Luke and other things. It's awesome.
I envision the card art as this dude is holding up a giant speaker, like in Say Anything. You know,
Exactly how it works.
yeah. No, I like it. Did
I
you guys
like. I
ever-
think talk about like playing the Flight of the Valkyries on like all like just like all sorts of stuff.
Did you guys ever play? I think it was Command and Conquer Generals. It was
Yep.
just, they had the if you played, I think it was if you played as China, they had these propaganda towers. And they were just giant speakers you built, and they would apply buffs to you guys and negative effects to the opponent.
Well, I mean, I play Warhammer, so it's all propaganda on that side.
Yeah, no, that's a great
Yeah,
idea.
they don't implement it well. We need a game to finally implement the psychological warfare aspects of
And
battle.
Suppression does that. It
Well-
allows that ability and it makes a mechanic.
And there's a natural synergy there. When you say psychological warfare, I think of like Operative Luke with Mind Trick. I think that's about like the closest implementation we have right now. And the cool thing about something like that is that would allow you to run Operative Luke without having to have Mind Trick stapled to him, because now you can have a team of psyops that go with him, and maybe they're wearing black robes also because that's cool and mysterious. And even if the mini doesn't come with black robes, get yourself some green stuff. Give Luke an entourage of some bad dudes. I love it. So what about some vehicle? Would you guys? I would love to talk about. I would love to see hard points like that are not specific to one only and only one vehicle, or anything else. Or if I skipped over anything else, go ahead.
No. With vehicles, I remember I brought up the e-brake idea, and
Okay.
it's more repulsor vehicle kind of focus. Was that you can do a 180? You're working into wedge territory, but do like a full 180 pivot, but you also give yourself a resilience thing, and we talked a little bit about that. But so you damage yourself, but you're giving yourself a free pivot.
Or
I know we talked a little.
well, yeah, and so I don't know if giving yourself a damage token, and we don't mean like a damage, but like when you become damaged, when you break your resilience, you roll that red die, you get to pick one of the 3 tokens. You were talking about that you think that'd be a good idea if you got to choose one and give yourself it, or something like that. And I realized that could be beneficial because you pick the one that isn't really going to affect you, since you can only have one of those. I think the consensus was, we were talking a little bit more about this, and we said, well, what if you just rolled and you had a chance to damage yourself?
That makes the most sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. I feel like it does lean into wedge territory, how wedge was. Maybe one other way to make it stand out a little more is you can lose your compulsory. You have the option. You have the option of turning on, of losing your compulsory.
I think everyone would be trying to lose their compulsory from turn 1.
Well, it may be something you can only do once per game.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to take a damage every time you do it, it's basically you're guaranteeing that you're going to crash, right? So, I personally love my compulsory moves because they usually, even if I lose an action, even if I get ionized, I still get to move and shoot. So
we're both X-Wing, and I'm Armada player, you're X-Wing and Armada. We're used to doing those compulsions. Okay, I know I have to move this place, kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a little easier for me, but also when I'm running vehicles, I usually try to build boards that have lanes for vehicles, always having at least, multiple paths to go. That's going to be harder getting the big tanks on the board. I feel like you're going to have to build much wider pathways and stuff. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, terrain is going to fundamentally change for me, especially.
Those things are monsters.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of tanks, too, we got some. The AIT is supposedly is shipping now. Should be, I think, April 3rd is the date for that.
Yep.
All the next stuff is coming out, so that's exciting.
I have Cassian and the Vital Assets pre-ordered, so I'm excited.
I've got all of it. I can't wait.
I got 4 upgrades for it, bolt onto its hard point right away.
Ooh.
So the first one's going to be Tracer Rounds. This is a free action, tap to use. And give credit to Sean on this one because he improved it vastly. Units that target the same unit as the vehicle gain a aim token. And so those Tracer Rounds are pounding in on the enemy troopers, and everyone else turns their head and focuses their fire, getting that aim token.
Here's a question. Do they have to... The timing is going to be important. And the reason I say that is, again, I'm thinking about how to break stuff. Rex's 2-pip. Let's say he gives a face-up order. Does the unit it probably makes more sense if they gain the aim token after rolling dice. This way,
I would be fine with that.
Yeah, but basically a way so that they can't have the aim before they make the attack. Because if they were out of range, but Rex's tube is like, oh, well, now you can move and then shoot, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's ways to kind of break that with timing.
I almost kind of like that though.
Oh, I mean, maybe
because they're still having to shoot at the same target.
Yeah,
I think you're still getting the kind of the visual effect that I would want there with the ATST raining down fire. Or in this case, the Saber tank, and then just kind of focusing those clones on that target and maybe allowing them to do something that they wouldn't normally be allowed to do.
Yeah.
Now, I think the other balancing factor of this card is maybe there's nothing left after that Saber tank shoots at the Rebel troopers.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You gotta go early with the vehicle before your troopers do, and then those troopers are just picking up what's ever left. But there might not be much left.
Oh, well, if you go after an ATST, there'll probably be something left.
Sure, yeah, if you're shooting the ATST, that is a good call.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the best. I think that's actually the most iconic moment of it too. I'm thinking of like Mandalorian. You know, night. It's nighttime. You're lighting up. You're doing. If anybody who's ever served in the military and done a night fire will know how beautiful it is to see tracer rounds flying through the air. It's a sight. It's a sight.
So,
it's all fun games until the range catches on fire.
Yeah. So I was just about to say that, like, we caught so much stuff on fire. Like, is there like a dice roll? Maybe you like set a terrain on fire.
Okay, so I want to tell you guys, without going too far off topic, that happened to us one time, and I remember having to, as a PFC, having to go put out fires because of tracer rounds, and we were given like this brass fire extinguisher that was like a super soaker that looked like it was something from like the 1920s, and there was probably about 20 of us that were sent out into the side of a mountain with, I think all we had was our gas masks, and we're like, this is ridiculous, we're not putting yeah. So yeah, that is, I don't think you incorporate the forest fire into the tracer round, but that add an unnecessary level of realism.
The next one I got, EMP Generator. It's an action tap to use at the end of your activation. All droid or vehicle units within range 1 suffer a 2 white attack, ion 1.
I like that.
It's not gonna.
It's very specific.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's not always going to help you if you're planning out like, hey, I might see this, then it's going to be really, it could be useless or it could be really good.
Yeah. Again, it's if you're using that vehicle as your breaching force, crashing into the enemy lines, once they get there, just hit that EMP pulse and affect everyone around you. 2
dice with white, you've got like a 50-50 shot of rolling a damage, right?
Yep.
And what I like about that is that B2s will be a little bit more resistant because of the armor, right? A little bit more resistant. And the B1s are going to be more susceptible to it, which is actually a really cool implementation. Yep. But if there's any cover, I don't know if cover should stop an EMP pulse, so you may have to give it blast.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I'm adding blast to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
I was definitely say so because like it's EMP. And I visualize, I just think like that, like the invisible shield expanding out and just hits everything.
Now there would be, I could imagine some type of like the Kark paint is designed to stop EMP or whatever. Like but I think we're getting a little bit too into the weeds with cover.
No, we're getting to my next upgrade.
Okay.
Which is ion shielding.
Okay.
This is for vehicles, and it's going to be ability, and it's at the end of the round, remove 1 ion token. So awesome. If you punch that ion on it early in the round, it's still going to be affected, but does allow the machine to cycle through its ion shielding and remove 1 at the end of the round.
That's really that, and what's good about that is it's if somebody has brought a very if vehicles run rampant for a little while and then people start bringing really ion heavy builds, it's not going to totally counter them. It's going to force them to have to concentrate on their fire on one vehicle, which you kind of have to do anyway. But it's not going to let you just be like, oh, I've got 3 ion guys, I can just fire 1 on each tank, or I've got 2 ion guys, 1 on each tank, and then forget it.
Yeah.
you're gonna have to concentrate a little bit more to get it through.
And full credit to you, Tim, because you helped me think through that one last night. So that was the improved one.
Yeah, no problem. That's what we're here for.
We'll save you from the original version, listening audience.
We're bridging one crit with another crit to create the double crit.
The last one I had here was reinforced armor, ability, immune pierce.
Yep. And like we were talking, it makes sense because
those are my four.
the tank shouldn't be that susceptible to sniper fire. There's not that many little islets in the tanks or the ATSTs that really matter. I totally agree with that one.
Now you're talking about this as a hardpoint upgrade, right?
Yeah. Now we did say it would be immune pierce from shooting attacks because you still want the lightsabers to get in there.
It was. I think my comment was when defending, maybe exhaust this or something or just when defending, reduce the pierce value by 1. So this way, snipers don't penetrate your tank, but a lightsaber still can.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think I like that. I like that a lot. That seems pretty balanced. It's this way because in all of the small arms fire that you run into. You don't usually see Pierce higher than 1. I think Han Solo is the only one that does it, and I'm okay with him doing that because he's a hero, and he's and he costs like more than what does he cost, like 110 points, 120. Yeah. So I'm okay with Han Solo having Pierce 2 for that, but like what the shotguns and the snipers and a lot of those little Pierce ones, don't necessarily need to pierce an ATST with reinforced armor, I get that. Okay, so I have I've got here we go. I've got some options I'd like to see on vehicles, and it goes into it's tiptoeing around the whole mounted commander idea, which I don't want to get too far into, but we got Sean and I, Rune Wars. Sean and I started playing Rune Wars, and they had commanders that had 2 options, and it was really cool. You had commanders on foot, and then a mounted version of the same commander. But since we've seen some kind of mounted commander imagery with the tanks and that are coming out now with the ALS Acura and Plo Koon and Lot-Durd. Yeah. Oh my. So we've seen the Lot-Durd coming up there, and I would like to see more existing characters added to the game in different ways. So I'd love to see Leia as a pilot, a generic pilot, can go in any rebel vehicle, not totally generic, a faction locked, non-vehicle specific upgrade that kind of does her support option where she's handing out dodge tokens, and maybe it's a free action exhaustible. Leia gets to hand out some dodge tokens, so she's playing Oprah Winfrey. You get a dodge. Same thing with Veers. And honestly, I do want to just see Veers, inside an armored vehicle because it's just one step closer to getting him in an AT-AT. But I'd love to see Veers to have the option to hand out aims from within a unit. It's a way to get more heroes on the, on your tabletop. It'd be also kind of cool if it came with a little mini bust that you can have them sticking out of the top, but I don't expect them to actually do that. But I would love to see more.
Third party 3D printers for.
That's exactly what they're for. But no, I'd like to see something like that. I think it'd be a very fun, because how many times do you have like a 200-point unit on the table and you realize, crap, I don't have a shot this round, or if you do get ionized, at least you've got a free action. You can do something, help those death troopers that are next to you, or do something useful. And so I like that as an option. It could be a cheap pilot option too, since especially if if those aims can't go to yourself, then. If they have to go to other people, if he's supporting other units, I'd like to see that. All right.
I love that idea.
All right, I want to ask you guys a question because we're kind of we're getting to kind of a winding down point. So, my question for everybody here to kind of to wind down this show, because it has been we've had a lot of great ideas. Is there any existing upgrades you would like to see errated, you want to see changed in the game right now? And I will start off with the harpoon gun, because I do like vehicles. I enjoy the snowspeeder, but I think the harpoon gun is a crime against humanity. It's only got the one red die. It's got impact, but it doesn't have pierce. And I think back to that shot, and I was thinking, boy, Pierce would be really great. It would give it a chance to hit, because even when it does hit, even if it does a damage, it's still not that debilitating, because so many vehicles now have reposition. Like, oh, did I just turn you? Well, that's no problem. You can just turn back. The really bad thing about it is that if you hit like somebody else's snow speeder, and then now they have to compulsory into and crash, and that's kind of the dream scenario. But my thought is, if Pierce is a little bit too strong for it, because I would like to see it have maybe more than one die also. But if it has to stay one die, let's give it lethal. If it's going to have impact, because if you aim, and I'm taking inspiration from the movie, Wes looks back after they make the shot and he goes, "Good shot, Jansen." So like, it shouldn't be easy to make the shot. Maybe giving Pierce makes it too easy. So if you line up the shot, and it's not an easy shot to make, because you still have to have the rear arc there. So you have to fly in a position, kind of make yourself vulnerable to return fire from another enemy vehicle, and pray that you hit, right? So if you'd have to have done a compulsory, land yourself rear facing them, you have to then take an aim, and then you have to shoot. So a lot of things have to all line up. Then you have to roll the hit, right? Because Snowspeeder doesn't even have surge to hit, so you can't roll a blank or a surge. So you have to roll a hit or a crit. Now you've got impact already, so if you roll a hit, you're going to be all right. But then you can spend the aim to gain that Pierce 1, and then so if you aim, you can make that great shot like Jansen did.
I think it should be natural, because like my idea is, like, I remember a defining moment where I shot it at a stormtrooper, and the stormtrooper blocked him. Like, how does the stormtrooper armor block a harpoon? Like, it should go. Yeah, exactly. It should make that great noise, and he should be dead. And he did it. And I was so upset.
He should be water skiing behind that airspeeder for the rest of the game. Yes.
I don't see, this is, I guess it depends on how you view the thematics. In the same way that Luke has red dice, right? He's not wearing any armor at all. So some of your red dice is your ability to dodge.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think the harpoon being a huge physical projectile, they just like it impacts like right near their feet, and they like kind of look down and like, damn, he missed. That's kind of how I like it came into their hit square. It was like right between his legs. Yeah. So that's my suggestion for an existing card to get errated.
I like it. It's a nice little light touch that makes it so much more interesting and makes the speeder more interesting.
And you could make it free.
Everyone can get behind.
It could be a free upgrade.
Yeah. So mine, I'm gonna use the one that I used from last night before Sean can steal it. That is grappling hooks. I think instead of just allowing you to clamber, what it should allow you to do is it should give you scale. Yep. So that you can move not only up, but then you can move over as well, or move over then up.
I love it. I love it. Let me ask you, scale. If you're going at
Yep.
Now, scale is, for anybody not familiar, scale is at the end of your move, you can do a free clamber with expert climber. And or at the beginning of your move, you can do a free clamber with expert. So basically, you can run up to a building and then immediately climb up to the top. And then in your next move, you can run the whole of that building and then immediately clamber down, and without having to take damage. So like, it's very, very cool.
Oh, and so would you lose? So now, actually, now I think about it, would you lose the expert climbing thing? So now, because you have scale, you don't get the guaranteed.
I think expert climber is included in the scale keyword.
I thought. It is. Oh, it is. Okay, never mind.
Expert climber and unhindered.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, I guess my question is, how does scale really work if you're going over a wall, like a wall that you would have to climb up and down, like one that really doesn't have a top surface, right?
That's like you can't balance the mini on top of there at all.
Yeah, like here's use case. So I do a lot of Hoth terrain. I've got some walls that are almost like very, very acute triangles, right? Now we've always played stuff like that. You can climb up and climb down. It's 2 climbs, so that would be your whole action. You could double clamber, and so I wonder how scale would work with that. I think you could still move. You get the free clamber. You'd have to spend your second action as a regular clamber. I think that's how that would probably work.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. And let me just say, I'm really looking forward to the episode where you guys dive into terrain ideas.
We are definitely we're putting some ideas together for terrain. That's for sure.
But yeah, I would agree. You would double clamor at that point using your Relentless.
All right.
And then I think when you got down on the other side, you could then still move.
Yeah.
And I think, Sean, you have a different one that we didn't talk about last night.
I didn't. I finally came up with one. It's something that's always bugged me is the Hunter. I do not like the wording on Hunter because I always got real confused. Like, oh, I've killed a unit. They're wounded. I should be able to get an aim token. No, it has to be a wound token on a unit, and it's always frustrated me because like I had snipers all with Hunter, and they're not doing anything for me in the field.
So you would change Hunter to say wounded or has had a mini defeated.
Exactly.
Okay, that might make it cost more because you're almost always going to get an aim that time.
I'm okay with that.
I could see that easily being a 10-point upgrade if they did that, but it might be worth it. I mean, I would run it even at 10 points. And I think the last one I would put environmental gear on there. I think when the game was designed, they thought there would be more area terrain, and I don't see much area terrain anywhere I play. I
want to hear this.
Unfortunately, I don't.
Leaning forward.
I don't really have a whole lot of suggestions on how to make it better. Maybe I just throw it out, or just make it free. I mean, I can see making it free, but
this will probably be broken. But environmental gear, tap to use, gain spur.
That sounds broken.
That does sound a little broken. I mean, it'd make it expensive. You gotta make it more expensive.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah. So
I was thinking of a way where you could use it to maintain your movement through difficult terrain. But the problem is difficult terrain. It's just not appearing on boards right now.
Well, suppose you give that to. Suppose you just use that for units that have charge, like when you put it on Luke, Commander Luke. Although that means you're not using emergency stims on Luke though, so that's interesting too.
Tap to use.
No, I think you know what environmental gear could also do. I don't know how you word it, but I'd like for it to potentially make you immune to the effects of battlefield condition cards.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing.
Like first off, Fog of War. It could let you shoot beyond the Fog of War. It could also let you. What is the one like? If you're not touching a terrain piece, you get a suppression.
Environment.
Hostile environment. It should make you immune to hostile environment as well.
Yep.
And so you could do that a couple different ways. It might be a little OP if you say, look, environmental gear makes you immune to battlefield condition cards. I don't know how that would work with rapid reinforcements if you could select that unit and then not have to do it. You know.
And you make it a May. You may ignore battlefield condition cards.
What about, because I think environmental gear, I think of like dealing with like very dangerous environments, poison and immune to poison. Because hey, you have the giant, the mop suit on. I'm going to go military. You have the mop suit on, so you're avoiding radiation and poison because you have a gear for it.
Well,
I would think the poison would be designed to get around that. I really like the idea of you may ignore battlefield condition cards. I think it's brilliant because that specialized gear allows you then to get around the mines as well.
Oh my God, yes. I love that. Never mind, we'll go with that.
Oh, wow, yeah. Okay, so but now I think you have to dramatically increase the cost if it lets you ignore an entire portion of the game. I'm thinking this may be pushing upwards of 15 points. At least at the beginning. At least at the beginning. No, dude, because here's the thing. If I could put it on all of my units. Now my entire army is completely immune to every condition. I feel like you have to look at what's the most broken way to run it. All right, giving it to 100% of your army. Now you got rapid reinforcements. I don't have to choose anybody. Or Fog of War. Everyone can attack. You can't attack me back for 2 rounds. I mean, that's like.
It's something in Armada where you had it was the liaisons that allowed you to kind of swap out orders. It seemed to me kind of like that new player crutch where you're like, hey, I'm not used to playing a certain way. I use this to avoid that effect because you make it, I say 10 to 15, it runs because then on experience rate, no, I can work with these effects, use them, and have more points for the upgrade of my units.
Yeah. They did that with when X-Wing 2nd Edition came out, and they changed turrets to where you had to manually rotate them. You didn't just get to shoot any direction. there's a Luke Skywalker card that was the most expensive card you've ever seen as an upgrade. And he just let you move it for free, effectively, to kind of make up. And he was basically like crutches for new players who had to learn about where to predict movement and stuff like that. So people thought he was a little bit overpowered or a little overcosted or whatever. But then you realize, wait, once you learn how to fly and you learn how to work around this limitation, now you've just got this huge surplus of points because you get to take 15 points off of every single unit. So that's maybe 15 is not the right number, but in any, like, if I'm designing a game and I feel like this is the smartest way to go, it's better, especially since they've shown they can adjust points now. It's better for something to cost a little bit more than for it to be a little cheaper, because everybody usually feels better when points go down, right? Everybody has a happy day when their favorite list, like,
no one wants to look bad.
Yeah, like, I've got 10 extra points. Cool. Everybody always feels better when they can fit more into their lists, but people feel really bad when that list they love to run is now 830 points because you just, this was too, so like when emergency stims went up, there's a lot of people who had a bad day. So, yeah.
Kind of going through my cards, there's going to be a lot of things that won't be able to take it because they don't have the equipment slot, like Jedi Luke, I think, comes to
Operative
mind.
Luke won't be able to, but Commander Luke can.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vader?
Droids don't have that equipment slot. There's going to be some things that just aren't going to have the option to, and some things will. So I think you're right. 3 points would be too cheap, but I really like the idea of, up-equipping your guys in order to ignore some of those effects. Leia with their NVGs calling in her coordinate bombardment. Veers with his NVGs calling in his maximum firepower.
Actually, I really like that because those command cards are so pivotal. Like, to drop one down like that is always like a feels bad moment. But like that works out perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like is a crutch for bad players like me who will undoubtedly play that one pip command card during limited visibility.
We've all done it.
Yeah.
I've done it.
You don't want to do that. And I've been a bad player on maps where it was harsh conditions and you got to touch terrain. And I'm just like, I guess I'm never getting rid of my suppression. I guess
I remember
stay suppressed.
I think I kept like 3 snowtroopers that's running forever.
Yeah, I guess we're getting one action every turn. That's okay. And so like, yeah, that could be, and because that's one condition we don't end up running very often, Sean. But, so like, I think a lot of people get into a habit of choosing the same objective and stuff like that. I can't tell you. I think every single Prime game I have ever played,
Sometimes evaporators.
Well, except with one exception, it's always been moisture evaporators. They're almost always moisture evaporators because I think that's what people are so accustomed to. They feel safe. They know it's like, hey, all right, I don't have to worry about this other person running away with there's no runaway leader scenario there. It's just if your blue player, red player has to come to you, etc. So, I'm always been very comfortable with that one.
So I think before we make a final decision on this one, we're gonna have to see what the new battlefield objectives are.
Yes,
with priority supply.
Well, but that's the beauty. We can make the final decision right now and then just revisit the topic, in 6 months and come back.
Reduce the points.
Yeah.
When those 3 new battlefield condition cards don't apply to environmental gear.
I think so.
Well, because from the spoilers I've seen, some of the new battlefield conditions, things like that, it's conditions. Never mind. I'm thinking like the objectives, like where you have to pick up something. Maybe you have this gear, so you're too heavy and you can't pick it up, or something. I don't know.
And another thing about a card.
Conditions, you gain 1 suppression token per round because you're running around at mop 4 in beautiful weather.
No, I just take it off.
I love that. Actually, I absolutely love that because I hated mop game.
But then it has to have.
There's your counterplay.
As a double action, you can just discard this card. You can just get naked.
There you go.
Yeah, because that's what I mean. I will put the war on hold to take off mop 4. I don't.
Yeah.
But not before round 4 because it's going to take command that long to pass the orders down to.
Of course. And then you're going to need a shower because you're going to be covered in charcoal.
Oh god.
Yeah. Starting at round 4, you can double action to take it off.
Non-veterans have no idea what we're talking about right now. All right. So, all right.
Just speak glad.
I think we're going to send this one to print. Johnson, print it. Don't look at me like that. Put your pants back
Paul
on.
Johnson.
I don't even know who Johnson is. He just showed up here one day. But I'm
just going to assume I'm going to be back here tomorrow night doing the same thing. So if that changes, let me know.
All right. So this has been the second recording of the second episode of the double crit, or double crit, not the double crit. All right, guys. I want to thank you all so much for watching this with us. It has been a good time. And be sure to check out War Corgi. We're going to put links in the description below down here. If you're watching us on YouTube, they'll be in the description. If you are listening to us on podcast, you can find us on YouTube. Check the description there. I don't think I really add descriptions on. I'm still new to uploading the podcast stuff, but definitely check out War Corgi and Jedi Hunter podcast. And yeah, and by the way, thank you for coming out with us, twice. Too, by the way.
Yeah.
I had a blast. Before we wrap up, though, I just want to put this out there. My channel, it will be the first channel to extend an invite to Sam to come have his first game of Star Wars Legion on the YouTube. So
that is brilliant.
So
if he listens to this, open invitation, visit me here in St. Louis, and I'll teach you how to play, my friend, with your beautifully painted minis.
Sam Witwer, if you're listening, let us know. Let War Corgi know. And if you happen to be in Orlando first,
Whoa.
I'm just saying, like, Disney's closed right now, so it's probably not going to happen. But and if that travel ban happens, if you happen to be wherever you are, you're going to be stuck there. So let us know. We will find you someone to teach you.
We'll find you. We'll make you play Legion.
We'll find you. Oh my gosh! Now I'm going to have a restraining order.
Sam, I will come to your house with my recording gear.
Johnson, go get Sam Woodware. Bring him. All right. Oh my goodness, we're gonna have the cops called. All right. Well, I want to thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Thanks to everybody for sticking with us this long. Let us know what you think in the description below. What were some of your favorite ideas that we talked about? And be sure to follow us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, all of those places. Click the subscribe button.
Reviews help out a lot.
Yes, absolutely. We do appreciate those. All right, guys, I will talk to you later. I want to thank you all so much. And as always, have a great day.